Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where the holiday box office might not be full of cash so far, but it is full of drama. Oh boy! Yes, this year the role of the Grinch will be played by Netflix, who movie theaters feel is stealing their Christmas away by refusing to extend Glass Onion's theatrical run beyond a week. It makes no sense, they claim, but I claim it makes perfect sense. So exhibitors begged and pleaded, but Netflix's heart was 3 sizes too small. Or was that they were worried about their subscriber base becoming 3 sizes too small? Yes, Netflix still doesn't want their subscribers to feel cheated. Does that matter to you? I saw one person last week in the comment section be like, that's right, I want my Netflix content for no extra cost on the streaming service because I pay for it. But I mean, they're giving you so much other content. Would it really have upset you if they extend, how do you feel from an audience perspective? I know how the theater owners feel. I know how Netflix feels, which I'm about to describe to you. But how do you feel? So Netflix is good to their word, and they are holding Glass Onion. No one can watch it now until December 23rd, when it will release on the Netflix streaming service. Did they really leave $100 million on the table? It's a sexy headline, but it's not that appealing to Netflix because $100 million, it's nothing to them. Glass Onion's theatrical release was more about making Rian Johnson feel satisfied and helping the film with its awards campaign. It certainly did get it a lot of momentum. You know, a lot of people talked about it. I talked about it. A lot of talk was incredibly positive. And, you know, you might wonder and say, will it lose that momentum by going dark for a week? And I thought about it, and I actually don't think that's true at all. Because here's the thing. The Golden Globe nominations are going to be announced December 12th. They're back on this year. They're airing this time on a Tuesday because the Critics' Choice Awards took that first big Sunday in January, and those nominations come out 2 days later on December 14th. So you see the momentum start to pick up again because I feel Glass Onion is going to do particularly well with those two organizations. I'm a Critics' Choice member. I will share my ballot with you once I've seen Avatar 2. That's the one movie I still have to see before I vote. And I got to tell you, Glass Onion's all over my nominations ballot. We vote in 2 stages. First, we vote for what should be nominated, and then we'll vote from the nominees for who we feel should be the winner. So I think Glass Onion's going to have a lot of nominations, and that's going to get it back in the conversation because then, bam, Glass Onion hits Netflix just about 10 days later as a really hot ticket for Christmas, New Year's, and the cold, bleak awards season, which is January, February, and a little bit of March. It is interesting because, usually they'll let, studios will let a movie die in theaters. It'll just everyone will lose interest and be like, you know what, I can wait to watch that at home. But here, Netflix is trying something different where it's like, you can't watch it. We refuse to give it to you, even though you really want it. So will that actually build pent-up demand, particularly because everybody else has really, decided to sit out this holiday season as there is a surprisingly few number of movies and streaming shows dropping. So Glass Onion is going to be the only ticket in town. I think it's very likely that Netflix will have another Don't Look Up on their hands. Their second most watched movie ever in that first 28-day window, which is how they measure their most watched films of all time. That helps with subscribers. That helps combat churn, and that's the name of the game at Netflix. That's what Netflix is interested in. They're also interested in awards, though. Don't Look Up was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture. I love that movie, as you might recall, but it didn't win any awards. It also got a ton of Critics' Choice. I don't think they even held the Golden Globes last year, but I think Don't Look Up, if they did, it would have done quite well with that organization. But now we're going for wins. And we'll see I think Glass Onion will get a ton of nominations, but the question is, will it actually win any of those? I think this year, the awards season is pretty freaking weak, so I think it has a real shot. It could be a Glass Onion and Top Gun Maverick kind of year, which would be fabulous, because maybe that means people would actually tune in. I think that especially because they have, not an exciting new host. Jimmy Kimmel's done it many times before. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Oscar ratings look like. Now, while yoinking Knives Out away from Lionsgate cost Netflix $450 million, see, I told you, $100 million is nothing to them. Universal released a real Christmas gem in theaters this weekend with Violent Night, which cost just $20 million to make. Talk about sexy. Wow! But first, on a similar note, speaking of trying to get audiences back in theaters, let's talk Cocaine Bear. This movie made quite the splash online just last week with its first official trailer, and the filmmakers want to keep that momentum going. Talk about momentum. How? How are they going to do it here? By asking you what you like about the movie. Yes, after Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and Ticket to Paradise, I'm teaming up with Popcorn again for another exclusive event. A cutting-edge interactive experience that makes audience research fun. I'm going to show you some footage, we're going to play some games, and this time, Cocaine Bear trivia. Get ready to impress your friends. It takes just 10 minutes of your time, and you could win an Amazon gift card. More than one person will win. We're giving away a couple of them. And you always want Hollywood to know what you're thinking. Well, this time they're asking you. So anyone across the globe can participate. You can do it right now, but space is limited. Only so many people are allowed into an exclusive event. So click the link below in the video description and at the top of the comment section. It's pinned there to secure your spot. Click right now, and I'll see you over there. To talk Cocaine Bear. All right, so similarly, also from Universal, this weekend, Violent Night. I see a pattern, Universal. I see a very clever pattern. This is another collaboration with 87 North, like Nobody Was, which did pretty good during the pandemic. At first, I looked at Nobody's opening and I was like, ouch. But then talk about a punch to the face. But then I was like, well, that was during the pandemic, so that's actually pretty solid. I mean, at just $20 million, how do you not make Violent Night? I mean, you have to greenlight that movie. It's ridiculous. At that price point, a $13.3 million opening in second place is phenomenal. Not even with great demos. The demos are not fantastic, but at $20 million, a movie can afford to be niche. But it's still, you're leaving money on the table. But I think this is going to go down exactly as I recently predicted just last week, because we all know Universal isn't afraid to rush certain movies to digital. Violent Night is going to eat as many Christmas cookies in theaters as it can for the next few weeks, and then right when the 17-day window is up, remember, Universal plays with different windows, and one of them is so famously or infamously, depending how you feel about theatrical releases, just 17 days. But bam! That's the week of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. That's incredible. So right in time for Christmas, Violent Night will slide down your chimney right into the comfort of your own home for you to purchase or rent at a very high price point for the actual holiday, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I mean, the positioning of this film, chef's kiss. It's brilliant to be able to make the most of theatrical and digital for a holiday film that has a very limited window of appeal. I mean, it's just amazing. The distribution executive who came up with this is a freaking genius. And that's how it's done in today's modern Hollywood. We keep talking about Hollywood is changing. Well, all the other studios are crying, but Universal ain't afraid of change. And that's why Warner Brothers Discovery is copying Universal's playbook as much as they're copying Disney's. Trying to. Although you'll see Black Adam is doing quite well on digital. Well, we have to guess, because nobody to this day still releases, actual revenue return for digital releases. All right, so, and they're on so many different platforms. As for the rest of the top 10, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, again, thanks to no big competition, has a free ride until Avatar hits December 16th. The social media embargo for Avatar 2, by the way, lifts this Tuesday evening. Why so early? Well, because it's a big awards contender. And as I told you, all those nominations are about to come out before Avatar 2 hits theaters. So they need to get it in front of a lot of awards voters. And so if they're doing that, they're going to throw it in front of the media as well. There's just tons of screenings on Tuesday. Tons of them. So beware spoil. Although I don't really know if you could have Avatar 2 spoilers. But look out for them, because we could. And sure enough, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever has almost caught up with Thor: Love and Thunder. As you might recall last week, I said I thought that it would beat out Thor: Love and Thunder, but it would be a photo finish with Multiverse of Madness. And that does indeed seem to be the case. A photo finish with Multiverse of Madness, but neither one joining the $1 billion club. I think that as long as Black Panther: Wakanda Forever finishes in the 900 million range, Marvel won't be embarrassed. If it has an 8 in front of it, I think that would be a tiny bit embarrassing. But I think they're getting cut a lot of slack, understandably so, because they really were thrown a last-minute curveball with Chadwick Boseman's sudden, surprise, tragic passing. They really, and Ryan Coogler not only had to deal with that professionally, but he had to deal with it personally because he and Chadwick Boseman were so close. So I think under the circumstances, this is a pretty incredible result. And it still managed to be very respectful and honor Chadwick Boseman. Now, should Marvel be worried overall? They don't have a billion-dollar picture this year. And billion-dollar pictures do exist this year. Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic World Dominion. I think that most non-Avengers movies, most of them, and usually if a solo Marvel movie makes $1 billion, it's because it's positioned very close to a big movie. And I think Multiverse of Madness had a bit of that same effect, being so close to No Way Home, which was kind of like an Avengers level event, right? But for Spider-Man, the Spider-Men. So that's kind of, I think, a similar situation, which maybe could be a reason why Black Panther Wakanda Forever might not get as high as Multiverse of Madness. And I think there's also the Wanda effect. It's interesting. But, you might be like, you're just making a bunch of excuses. I think to be fair, that is a somewhat reasonable response to all this. But still, most non-Avengers movies don't make $1 billion. They're somewhere in the 800 million range. They were like the last time they had a big chunk of those, and everything wasn't swept up into the Infinity War Endgame engine. They were pulling in around 800. So that's pretty good. So that really only makes Thor: Love and Thunder a problem. So I think Kevin Feige's love affair, Chris Hemsworth kind of seems to have fallen out of love as well, with Taika Waititi might be over. And let's see if Taika Waititi even gets to make a Star Wars movie at this point. Forget a Thor 5. I hope he had fun on that set. He had quite the shenanigans, and he went and filmed a 4-hour movie, and it might have been his swan song. So, that's a lesson learned, and for other filmmakers to think of when they decide that they might be feeling invulnerable coming off of an Oscar win and Thor Ragnarok, but not invulnerable. All right, so we'll also see what happens in 2023 and if MCU fatigue is real. Right now, it's an idea, a scary idea. The Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 trailer, which I thought was quite good, it did make a huge impression on Thursday. I mean, it did the best of all the trailers, so that's good, but it didn't make a huge impression. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania made a bigger splash when it finally debuted like just a few weeks ago. That's weird. Maybe it's too early for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Maybe it's too close to the holiday special and it kind of got lost in the noise. But I also have to say, none of the CCXP trailers did well. None of them hit big. Even The Last of Us yesterday, no one really cares. I think it might be a huge convention in Brazil, and I think that's why so many studios flock to it, and it has done quite well for DC. So DC fans know about CCXP, but I don't think anybody else really does. It's still not on the global radar, and I think that a lot of those trailers were wasted. So maybe Little Mermaid, dodged a bullet by not debuting. Meanwhile, Disney's latest animated movie, Strange World, is not benefiting from word of mouth. Some people were like, it didn't do well simply because Disney didn't advertise it. Well, apparently nobody's talking it up because this thing fell 60% in its second weekend, and it fell 60% from not very high. It's only at 42 million worldwide. Oh, that's so bad. And it doesn't have any big countries left to go. So no big other markets are going to save this thing. Will Disney Plus save it? I predict no. And I think that this year, Disney, not through Pixar or Disney proper animation, will win the Oscar. I think the best animated feature Oscar is going to go to Pinocchio or Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I think Puss in Boots: The Last Wish has a real chance of taking it, to be honest with you. I'll review both those movies this week. And that's an interesting situation. As I said, I think Bob Iger is going to take a hard look at the Disney corner of the House of Mouse. But you know what? Disney, if they want to try and defend their job, they could say the other studios aren't doing much better. In fact, studio flicks are doing so poorly for the most part that another religious Fathom event was able to make a real dent in the top 10. And it also speaks to the strength of the conservative market in entertainment. I don't know. Let's not get too wrapped up in this. I mean, those numbers are not big. The fact is the other numbers are so small. These are bad numbers across the board. Awards films are the worst. They're totally bombing in theaters. So as I said, expect Top Gun Maverick, especially, to be plastered all over this year's Oscars in an attempt to get people to tune in. But if that could really backfire, because if all these fans tune in and then Top Gun Maverick doesn't take home any actual awards and is just clearly used to get you to tune in, it's going to be bad. I predict maybe the lowest ratings ever for the Oscars this year. Let's see what they come up with to combat that, because I think it's going to be bad. And the bar is pretty low on Oscar ratings these days. All right, over on streaming, we've got 2 weeks to go over with Nielsen due to a delay from the Thanksgiving holiday. So for the final week of October, like Rings of Power, House of the Dragon dropped significantly after its season 1 wrapped, but at least it was able to stay in the overall top 10, whereas you might recall Rings of Power totally dropped out. But Netflix, despite all the doom and gloom headlines, and it was a little scary for them, they did have to make some very real changes in terms of downsizing, in terms of projects and personnel, and they did introduce an ad-based version of their service. So, it's not all perfect over there. But look at it, it's still dominating. I mean, in the overall, it's got 9 out of 10 spots. That's incredible. And that's because Netflix keeps its subs entertained with a constant tsunami of content. A tsunami, while other services do the drip, drip, drip of the weekly release. How effective is the weekly release? I think this is very interesting. I know some of you prefer the weekly release, and it does lend itself more to discussion. I mean, who's talking about Wednesday, even though everyone's watching it? But wait till you see some of this Andor stuff. We'll talk about it in a moment. I think everybody needs a little work. With series, The Watcher is still huge this final week of October, while new entries, Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities, and From Scratch, Zoe Saldana was just talking about how franchises have kind of taken over her career. Oh, how sad. But, good for her. Good for her. She got From Scratch her own Emily in Paris, and it's done quite well, very well. But if you think Andor down at number 8 is depressing with its 8th episode, just hold on a moment when we get to the next week. But first let's stop over at movies, where The Good Nurse might not have a lot of awards chatter, but it did surprisingly well for Netflix. People really watched that thing. Wow. While School for Good and Evil is still going strong, and All Quiet on the Western Front, that's a German remake, it did okay, but it's still good enough to be number 4 in the movies section. And HBO Max got on the list thanks to Barbarian, left over from their deal with Fox. So even though those are technically Disney movies, when they go to digital, HBO Max gets them day and date. That deal's not going to be forever, but for the past couple of movies, that's been the case. As for the first week of November, look at Manifest. Nielsen combines all seasons into one. So even though we know from Netflix's charts, which are a little bit ahead, that Manifest season 4 only did okay, when you make a giant, bouquet of all 4 seasons, it's enough to actually dominate the overall chart. That's incredible. And then they also have reality show Love is Blind right behind it. Is that like Netflix's 90 Day Fiancé? We never see reality shows on there. That's incredible. And there's more new content from Netflix. Inside Man and Enola Holmes 2 had strong debuts as well this week, while Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities and From Scratch held strong in their second weeks. But then here, Andor, where's Andor? Andor ain't here. Isn't that amazing? With episode 9, it couldn't make it into the top 10 originals chart this week. It never makes it into the overall, but at least it's always at the bottom of the originals. This week, totally fell out. Brutal! Especially considering episodes 6 through 10 was the show's strongest run. If people ain't watching at this point, they ain't watching. I don't know, maybe there will be a binge miracle, and that'll be a signal to Disney Plus that maybe they should consider the binge model for some shows. We've discussed how Andor doesn't play like a typical Disney Plus show, but I feel it's a little HBO Max like. I know you guys like to defend Andor and be like, everybody just is a Philistine who doesn't have good taste. You can't defend these numbers. If you're not going to, it's like, it failed at what it was supposed to do, and that was get people to watch it. It's crazy to me. It's poorly constructed from a business perspective. It's 50% boring, but 50% amazing. All right, so that's why Disney was trying to put in other services to get a wider audience, to get more exposure. Some people are like, oh, it must be a reward for how well it's doing. Well, those people don't watch movie math and don't know the facts, the real situation. Did it work for any of you? Were any of you who are for some reason not with Disney Plus, who are churning right now, did you cash it on one of these other services and be like, maybe that's pretty good? It's the worst too. It's such a bad preview for that show. All right. On the movies chart for this week, Enola Holmes 2 might be queen, but with under 1,000, they do this in like millions of minutes, but as you can see here, under 1,000, it's a little weak compared to other movies. The Good Nurse posted better numbers with its debut, as you just saw. So that's a little, I don't know. I would give me a little bit of pause about any more Enola Holmes, to be honest with you. because I'm sure it's not a very cheap movie. Over on Netflix's own charts for just this past week, Slumberland got a bit of a surge in its second week due to the Thanksgiving holiday, and while it was number 2 the week before, this week it's number 1. Plus, Netflix seems to be giving Hallmark a run for their ratings when it comes to cheesy Christmas movies. Look at all those. Wow. But the real story for Netflix is Wednesday, which you're right. It topped Stranger Things 4 as the most viewed English language series in a single week. Where it tied was the number of countries that it was number 1 in. And I guess that's just how many countries Netflix plays in because, they're tied. That's incredible. The all-time record holder is still Squid Game, which of course was not an English language show, which has a comfortable 230 million hour lead. So that record is still pretty secure. But wow, that is absolutely incredible for Wednesday, especially considering Stranger Things 4 had supersized episodes, whereas Wednesdays are all under an hour. Some of them are like around 40 minutes or so. So that is really amazing. Now, some have argued that Wednesday had a bit of an advantage with so many people off for Thanksgiving that week, and they had lots of time to binge. But don't forget that Stranger Things 4 was released for the 4th of July window, so it also benefited from being released near a holiday. I'd have thought we'd also be talking today about season 2 being approved, but it seems to be taking a little bit of time. I suspect for contract negotiations. Tim Burton and Catherine Zeta-Jones are going to want to get paid a lot for season 2, especially Catherine Zeta-Jones, who they say they want to expand her role, and so she's going to be negotiating for a big pay raise for that. Plus, with Jenna Ortega blowing up like Jennifer Lawrence after Hunger Games, she deserves to get paid too. So as I said, they're probably hammering out all those deals now, but I'm very excited. Expect the Wednesday season 2 announcement any day, as fast as they can get that deal done. Huge congrats to Alfred Goh and Miles Miller, who I hope are also getting paid, who have managed to make lightning strike twice. Very rare in particularly the TV and now streaming space to be able to deliver more than one hit show, an iconic show. It's really incredible. As for the rest of Netflix's series chart, 1899, The Crown Season 5, Dead to Me Season 2, and Manifest are all normal-sized hits, but they're not phenomenons. Wednesday is a phenomenon. On iTunes, Black Adam is still dominating thanks to not being on HBO Max yet at no extra cost, and it needs all the money it can get as it is not going to hit 400 million worldwide. I told you it was unlikely. Some of you insisted, but it's not happening. It's not going to hit 4. And it's actually kind of bizarre that Dwayne Johnson keeps acting like it's a big hit. I mean, there's promotion, which we all understand he needs to do because now it's in the digital space and he wants it to do well as it's doing. But you don't want it to come across as denial. Illumination's The Grinch is indeed the new king of Christmas. I think the whole ad campaign for Black Adam, by the way, was a mess. That whole thing was like kind of delusional. It was weird. The whole thing. From the very beginning, you were like, are you looking at the same movie that we are? It was really a weird Did you feel that way? I thought it was very weird. I think it ended up, it didn't even match Hobbs and Shaw. And I think part of it might have been the blowback of them trying. I think they should have been more honest about what they had on their hands there. And I'm not surprised that it's doing best on digital. And I think it'll really do well on streaming. Illumination's The Grinch is indeed the new king of Christmas, but Elf is still plenty popular. They're both in the top 10. While Vince Vaughn and Peter Billingsley teamed up to make their own cheesy holiday movie. It's a spoof. They're not in it, which I think says volumes, but Vince Vaughn, they both produced it, and Vince Vaughn's even a credited writer on it. But it's funny that they're making fun of cheesy holiday movies, yet at the same time still benefiting from how much people love them. As for this coming week, no big movies want to open the week before Avatar 2, so it's another gimme, which is really going to help Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and especially Violent Night. Violent Night has another weekend to maybe get a little bit of a bump after it did, pretty darn well its first weekend. People will be like, maybe I should go check it out in theaters. And then we're going to get some awards films jumping into the fray because they need to open in theaters in order to qualify. So Empire of Light will actually go wide while The Whale will open in limited release. As for streaming movies, on Friday, Disney Plus has their animated Night at the Museum, as well as an Idina Menzel special. While Will Smith's Emancipation, he actually got a lot of publicity for that movie this past week. So it played a week in theaters, and now it's going to debut on Apple TV this Friday. Prime Video has their own cheesy Christmas movie, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio will hit Netflix. With shows, the final season of his Dark Materials starts tomorrow on HBO and HBO Max, while Doom Patrol Season 4 starts on HBO Max only this Thursday. Then on Friday, more video game animation on Netflix with Dragon Age Absolution. It's pretty slow, though. You know, what I wouldn't give for a crappy Witcher Season 2 this year. It's really slow. Let's see if that benefits Avatar too. So that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of how Netflix is handling Glass Onion and Universal, how they're handling Violent Night? These are very interesting strategies, and you're seeing streaming really factor in more than ever into a theatrical release strategies. It's actually fascinating. I love it. I love it. Plus, be sure to click down below for that exclusive interactive event for Cocaine Bear. Make sure you get in. All right, share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.